I'm Pastor Monica, and today I want to talk a little bit about forgiveness and how we make it more difficult than it really is. In the 20th chapter of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus tells a parable about a group of laborers who go to work in the vineyard during different times of the day. And yet, when the end of the day comes, all are paid the same wage, whether they worked 1 hour or 8 hours. And of course, people protest. Well, why didn't I get that? Why didn't I get more? I worked more. And Jesus says, that's not how this forgiveness thing works. When I was a student in seminary, I took a class behind the bars of a maximum security prison. And I was struck in a conversation by one of the inmates who burst into tears when we were studying this passage. And when we questioned him about how we could help, he said, I don't believe that God can forgive me 100%. Why should God forgive me? I've only been a believer for 8 months. And I look around this room and people are here who have believed in Jesus their entire lives. Why should God give me the same forgiveness? We talked with this man, and ultimately I hope and pray that he came to understand that God does love him and forgives him equally. Forgiveness from God is the big leveler for the human race. We are all equally forgiven whether we've come to believe on our deathbed, 5 minutes before our death, or as children baptized by our parents and sponsors into a faith that forgives and forgives and forgives. You know, as human beings, we love to judge each other. It's part of our nature, unfortunately, and we also like to place judgment on forgiveness. We hierarchize sin. Sometimes people say, oh, well, telling a lie isn't nearly as bad as murder. Why should God forgive a murderer? But me, I've told some lies. I know I'll be forgiven. And that's so wrong. God doesn't place any conditions on forgiveness except to ask us to believe with all our heart that Jesus is God's Son. We have trouble believing that sometimes, I think, but we must remember that God's love for us is so immense and so encompassing, and that's something we can't really fathom, and maybe we're not meant to. So instead, we must trust. We must trust that God forgives us whether we came to faith as children or 5 minutes ago. And I hope this week that you can remember that as you go about your day and encounter people who you may want to strangle, but instead consider that God has forgiven that person just as you have been forgiven. And it doesn't matter whether it was yesterday or 10 years ago, or if it will be in the future. All those who confess Jesus Christ as Lord will be forgiven by God equally. I hope that if you've enjoyed this moment, you'll consider worshiping with us at Epiphany Lutheran Church. You can find out more about us at www.epiphanylu.org. We'd love to have you join our little community. We have a lot of fun activities planned for fall. Picnics at our garden. We'll be going to see a new movie on Martin Luther to celebrate the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. We have all kinds of things happening, ways to serve the community and ways to serve our neighbor. So come and join us and find out about this forgiveness that God gives to all people.